Everybody, this is David Ellefson here, and you are watching the Network 317 podcast.
All right, we have Dave Ellefson from Megadeth, Ellefson. How do you find time to do all this?
Well, I'm ambitious. I think, years ago, I only had time to do one thing, and that was be in Megadeth because we were making records and touring the world and, pretty singularly focused. There came a stretch in the early 2000s where Megadeth was disbanded, and that sort of forced me out of the nest a little bit. I had to spread my wings and fly during that season, which I did. And once I got started doing that, I didn't want to go back to just only doing one thing anymore. In fact, there was always a part of me, because I had a young family, there's always a part of me just going, gosh, I got all my eggs in one basket with Megadeth. What if something happens here? What if for whatever reason we cease to be a group? It's like I am completely screwed, financially and on every level. And then one day, of course, that day came. Sometimes it takes those crisis moments to give you your wake-up call. And so it's interesting, though, it's like the good Lord provided the transitional steps into different things. And I went to college and got a business degree and continued to make music, and played with Soulfly and F5 and a bunch of other things that I did. And I think what I learned from it is, life is pretty wide. Don't just narrow yourself into one thing. Like, this is all I am. This is all I've ever done. This is all I ever know. Because you can't grow like that,
Right.
And I think, that season, during that decade opened my eyes to that. And so in 2010, when I came back to Megadeth, I just added bass player of Megadeth on top of all these other things,
Right.
And that I think is really the perspective that's changed. So for the last decade, and I've been writing books and, started Metal Allegiance, and me and Frank Bello started our thing. And now, of course, the record label stuff and the coffee company and all that, it's all just sort of, it all just kind of builds on top of it, on each other. And life is cool. Life is fun. It's exciting. And I feel like I'm making some contributions to the world,
Right. One thing I wanted to hit on was the David Ellefson Youth Foundation. What exactly do you guys do with that? Do you teach? Of course, you teach kids. Explain what you guys do with that.
Well, it's not so much a music school as it was set up. It was designed around. We launched it around the David Ellefson Day, which the mayor of my hometown of Jackson, Minnesota, was kind enough to proclamate October 9th, David Ellefson Day, which I find ironic because my favorite band, Kiss, was also given the keys to the city of, I think, Pontiac, Michigan on that day back in 1974, 75. So I guess all good things happen on October 9th, right? But so around that, I said, look, let's do something that bigger that gives back, and I thought about having a foundation. And it just kind of was buzzing around my head. And then finally, the purpose of it showed up. And it was really to support music programs in and out of both public and private sector school systems. And I found my focus with the foundation to be especially in rural communities, because that's where I grew up. There's a lot of big organizations that can get into the inner cities and inner city schools and do that. They've got the bandwidth, they've got the funding, they can do that. I'm not an inner city. I didn't grow up in the city. I grew up on a farm, you know what I mean? So for me, the rural areas are near and dear to me. And I am a product of the public school music system, the music programs. So for me, I find it important that wherever you get your education, in music, that it always starts when we're very young.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And that, I'm not a jock. I mean, I play sports. I'm into it now, but I was not a jock. And I was always kind of, I noticed as I got a little older and then I had my own kids, I'm like, wait a minute, it's like the sports programs are, everybody's into the sports. I was like, football's like one of the most brutal sports, and kids blowing their knees out.
Yeah.
People are banking their kids' entire college education on, their sports activities, and suddenly they blow a rotator cuff, and you know what I mean? And they're freaking,
oh yeah.
And I was like, this is ridiculous, man. It's like, music should have the same shot. I mean, music is my language,
Sure.
that's my tribe. So I thought, with my foundation, I'm going to set out to support what's dear to me and what I'm a product of, which is music education.
Sure. Do you have any of the kids that come to these programs that are familiar with you and what you've done with all of your music and your bands? Are they like, oh wow, look who that
Sure.
is?
Yeah. And I figured, years ago I saw Bono. He was, from U2, and I love U2. I'm a big fan of theirs. And I remember
Oh yeah, great band.
doing some debt relief thing or something. And I remember somebody asked him, they said, don't you feel like you're being used? And he said, you know what? I'm here to be used.
Sure.
And I always admired their faith, background to that band. And I grew up a Lutheran kid, and that's kind of how I was raised. It's like, be of service always, you know what I mean? It's like, that's why the good Lord put you on the planet, was
sure.
to do good by others, And as much as, like I've gotten to have my own spotlight and my own career in rock and roll and all that, there comes a point in life where if you just keep hoarding it for yourself, it's like, that it just has an ugly feel around it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I would assume it would get boring,
Yeah, and it's just like, what can we do? Again, behind me, I've been blessed with a bunch of that stuff, which is great. But that was just a moment in time. You know what I mean? Now what?
Sure.
What are you doing today? What are you going to be doing tomorrow to give back? And so I think, I don't know, maybe it's just my age, and I've been blessed to scale the summits of success in rock and roll, but it's just kind of like, it can't all just be for your own glorification. It just can't be. Otherwise like, where does that end? It's like an endless life, So for me, the foundation, if my celebrity or, notoriety from being a bass player and being Megadeth and whatnot is an inspiration to others, then hey, like Bono said, I'm here to be used, man.
That's cool.
What a great thing to be used for.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool. We've got 3 tracks that we've really been pushing. Sleeping Giant. Well, let's start on that one. Where did you get the inspiration to come up with that? With Tom Hazard?
It's funny. That was a track I wrote. It's bass line. I just wrote the bass line,
which is a phenomenal bass line.
Yeah, thank you. And I wrote it. God, I mean, I've had that thing around since the mid 2000s or something.
Wow.
And I did a version of it. I have a friend, Ilias Papadakis, I guess how you say it, from Greece, and he's been a dear friend of mine. And he actually came here to my house. He's got family that lives here in Phoenix. He came to my house and we put down a track of it. And so it'd been kind of sitting around for a while, never any lyrics for it. And so last year I wrote a book called More Life with Death. And around that, my business partner, Tom Hazard, who also helped me author the book and sings in my solo band with me, we had this, I hit him, I said, look, I got these couple songs, I really could use some lyrics. You got any ideas? I'm open, So he called Daryl McDaniels from Run DMC. Wow. And, to collaborate with him. And
wow.
We were talking about him collaborating. And one day I was sitting there, I was literally watching over a friend's house, watching a football game, and it hit me. And I called Tom and go, dude, I got the song Sleeping Giants. That you and Daryl work on that one, man. Focus on that. Write about whatever the hell you want, but that's the track, And,
that's cool.
So it's so cool. And Daryl's just such a good dude. And quite honestly, so we put out this, what we thought was going to be a couple of digital downloads to kind of go along with the book, turned into a full-length album because literally right over here in a box on my shelf, I have a CD of a bunch of demos that I wrote as far back as like when we had a break on the Countdown to Extinction tour in 1993. Wow. And it was a really explosive period of my life, as well as with Megadeth. We were very prolific during that decade, with Nick and Marty and everything. And so I was also writing a lot of stuff. And so I started collaborating with a friend of Nick Menzies, actually, a guy named Pat Shunk. And we used to go mountain bike riding together and stuff, and we just became friends. And so we started writing together. And he was a writer for Huey Lewis has a publishing company that Pat he was a writer for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, it's kind of all these cool little, networks that happened Just from going bike riding with Nick Menza, you know. I
Wow.
got all these friends.
Wow.
So I have literally the CD over here of all the, I mean, like 14 songs that we wrote, and they never saw the light of day. So Tom just goes, dude, let's call the album Sleeping Giants, and then you can pull out all those old demos that have been sleeping on your shelf over here. You know? And so that was, you know, it's just, you know, collaboration, you know, just kind of riffing on ideas, and things happen, you know.
Talk about songs that you have packed away. How many songs do you think you actually have that you've written and that's never seen the light of day? Like, you know.
Well, now not so many, because I pulled all those out for the Sleeping Giants album.
Sure.
You know? I mean, quite honestly, you know, Tom and I were already working on an Ellefson, basically a follow-up to Sleeping Giants, which would be our first full-length record LP
Right.
of all original material. And so there were some ideas there, even some things that I thought about bringing over to Megadeth. A couple things I think I did bring over there. You know, early on, a couple years ago, just kind of, again, throwing ideas in the pot. You know, when you're getting an album started, you know, it's sort of a blank canvas. So you're like, I don't know, let me just throw some ideas at it and see if these stick, and, you know, just kind of nothing else, get the wheels moving, you know. But there were some things that I had that I really liked, and I you know, I thought, you know, I need to do something with this. And, you know, my guitar player in my band, Andy Martingelli over in Italy, he and I we play so well. Kiko introduced me to him. And we really have just a great friendship and a great musical friendship. And we work really well together. And he really, I mean, I just can't sing his praises enough. He really is an anchor piece of our Ellefson solo band. And helps, you know, kind of bring in musicians when we tour, and to just kind of, I deem him my musical director. You know, if I come up with an idea, hey, Andy, I got this riff, he goes, no problem, I'll throw it down, I'll put it into Pro Tools, I'll whip it up, and I'll send it back to you. And
That's cool.
Drums on it, and he's just very well versed at that, you know. I sometimes don't have enough patience. I learned that years ago. I don't have enough patience to just sit and dig in and geeking out on all the tech stuff. And God, I admire the people that do. I used to, I just don't anymore. I think there's just other things in my life that interest me that I'm a more of this guy, conversationalist guy. And other people, God bless them, they're able to just dig down deep and geek out into the, you know, the whole recording thing. And you know, and Andy does that for me, and it's great because I can just riff ideas past him, and he'll turn them back to me into songs, and I'm like, oh man, this is great. So,
yeah, it's taken years for me to turn the tables over to someone else in the controls and let them, you know, try to, you know, maintain some of this, you know, madness, you know, the video editing, because usually we do all this live in person, but since the COVID hit, no tours, no in-person interviews.
I'm the same way when I record, man. I don't like sitting at home just recording stuff. I'd rather be in a room and, hey, I'll let you engineer and I'll play bass. And if you hear something and I'm not catching, let me know. I mean, produce me. I'm cool with that, you know. Like I'm not above someone being a teacher to me, and you know, being able to be produced, you know, like let someone, hey, you know, you played something pretty cool, let's try that over here in this part, or hey, let's develop that lick that's really cool. You know, I like that. Again, I'm a conversationalist, so I like to have music conversations as well. I find when you're here at home alone, which I've had to do, obviously these last, especially the covers record, I pretty much recorded right here behind me.
That's amazing.
And it's okay, because at least we're not, you know, these are songs we know. You can kind of write charts. I kind of know them just by heart because I'm a fan of them, so I already kind of know what they are. When you're creating new things, sometimes it's different. You know, cover record, I'm kind of trying to really stay true to the original parts because I'm such a fan of those parts. I just want to honor them and play them like my heroes played them, you know.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
You know, so it's a little bit of both. I've learned how to have to kind of be in solitary confinement back here cutting bass tracks, you know, and it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. A couple more songs. The Over Now. Post Malone song.
Yeah.
How did you get him to agree to it? Not saying he's not a metal fan, because we all know he is.
Yes. Yeah.
But how did the two worlds collide there?
Well, Tom, it's funny. My daughter is big into Post Malone, as is my wife, and
My kids too.
yeah, right. I mean, he's the guy,
Yeah.
and I really like his sound. It's my daughter plays a lot of cool stuff, and some of it is just not my stuff, but Post I liked. And so one day Tom hits me and he goes, dude, he's talking to me about Post, and I wasn't that familiar with him. And he goes, my gosh, this guy's got like 9 number ones. We've got 9 songs in the chart. He's got more songs in the chart than the Beatles. And dude, he's got a Megadeth "So Far So Good, So What" tattoo on his arm. I'm like, yeah, really?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we struck up a conversation with him on Twitter, and we were just chatting with him. And he's such a good dude. He's a sweet kid. And I went over. I was in Stockholm. Playing with me and Frank Bello were over there on tour with Slash, and we'd played at the Globe. There's like a smaller venue that we played the night before, and I stayed behind. And Posty was playing the next night, so I went over and we met up and hung out. And he likes to do his beer pongs backstage,
Of course.
So and he's just such a cool guy, just so chill, just very kind. Yes, Mr. Ellefson. Here, Mr. Ellefson. He's just a nice kid from Texas, And so we just stayed in touch, and Tom, last, I guess probably like November, we were over in Italy doing a little Ellefson solo tour, and he said, hey, what do you think about doing a cover of Over Now? And I said, totally. I said, I like the song. I think it'd be cool, and doing a metal version. And so again, I ran it past Andy Martingelli, and he said, dude, I've got it entirely down. I know exactly how to do it. And when he sent the track back, I was like, holy cow, man! It's like, this is friggin' awesome, man. We can metalize all of Posty's tunes, and I'm sure he'd love it because he's a metal fan.
Oh yeah.
And just to take his sound, and kind of put the big wall of guitars and get a little creative on some of the bass stuff around it. It was. There was one other band that did something like that. They had a Taylor Swift song was out. It was brand new, and some other current kind of radio band, like a rocker band, covered a Taylor Swift song. I thought that is a brilliant idea because normally, a young band who's not as known to capitalize on a really big artist.
Right.
I thought it was a kind of a cool strategic idea, So when Tom brought this up, it reminded me of that, and I just thought, it's kind of clever to reimage a current song that we're obviously going to bring over into our metal world.
Oh, it's an amazing track. An amazing track.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and he liked it. He was stoked. He liked it. So
right.
Getting his approval was cool.
I'll tell you a real fast Post story. He was in town to play a show in Indianapolis. It was a family night, so I was taking my family out to Olive Garden.
Right.
And
he's a big Olive Garden.
Oh,
fan.
Sure. We pulled up, and I mean, it was packed. And I'm like, I don't want to go in. It's too packed. Of course, the family wanted to go. We got in line. We were there about 30 minutes, and it was packed. And I'm like, we're going. Yeah. Well, then my one of my daughters, she was like, guess who's in there? Yeah. Post Malone is in there, and of course we had already headed out, and we've already left, and they were all screaming, wanting to go back, but he man, I tell you what, the place was packed. People were on the outside and just surrounded the place.
Yeah, no, it's nice with Post. He's a real guy. He's a real artist. He's a real fan of music. He's into music, and I love that. Dave Grohl's like that. He was known for Nirvana, but then, as the years went by, you realize, man, this guy can hang with anybody. This guy's a real musician. He's a fan. Mike Portnoy's like that.
Oh yeah.
I've played with. I realize that's why Mike gets all these gigs. It's because he's such a fan. When we were doing metal, Metal Legions, he's like, I did, Slayer song. Someone would just play any song, and he like to be, I know that song, and you jump in and play it. I'm like, no wonder this guy get gigs.
Sure.
He knows, just as a fan, he knows so many songs that it's like he can play with anybody. You get the Twisted Sister thing. They called him immediately. He drove down. Next thing he's in Twisted Sister for 2 years. So
I would have fell apart. I would have been like, man, I would have overthought every part, everything about it. I would have blown it.
Yeah, Mike's not like that. Mike's just in the moment, like, he's basically a fan. Mike's a fan.
Wow.
A great drummer, obviously, but in his heart, he's a fan, and it's fun to play with people like that.
Oh, sure.
Despite all of our successes, have not lost the fire. You be get
that's amazing,
jaded, and that's always, I've watched that and I've admired that, and it's kind of always taken me back. Like, be the teenage David Ellefson. Don't be the you've got to somehow have your ego in check and all your crap going on. It's like, just be a musician.
Right, right.
You know?
All right, one more song, and then we're going to move on to some more questions. Simple Truth.
You're fucking perfect, but let's talk about you. Tell me all the things that you're gonna do. You said you were gonna go so far, so tell me why you're still sitting where you are.
So Simple Truth, same thing. Actually, that tour in Italy that we were doing back in November, we went, Tom, we were going to rehearsal, and we were a little jet lagged, a little kind of shot out. And he goes, hey, let's write a song today when we get to rehearsal. And I was like, geez, all right. So I wasn't thinking of anything, and I just walked in and plugged my bass into an amp, dialed up a tone, and just started riffing that kind of Dead Kennedys,
Sure.
That's kind of what it was. It reminded me of this sort of DK kind of riff, and band jumped in, and half hour later we had a song. So,
nice.
That's literally how it happened. Just came together that quick.
Cool. All right. No Cover. The next LP for I was reading in the press release 13 plus cover songs. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Wow, man. And I've got the list here in front of me. It's like, Queen, Cheap Trick, Judas Priest, Def Leppard, Motorhead, Wasp. Are you a fan of all these bands to bring in, their songs to do covers on them?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the Wasp song, Wasp was already, by the time I got to LA, Wasp was just taking off. They got signed to Capitol. Me and Dave obviously starting Megadeth, so I wasn't able to be such a fan of bands at that point because I was kind of getting my game face on as we were starting our own band, but I was well aware of what was going on. In fact, I went to Wasp, their last show they played at the Troubadour in LA, right as they were getting signed and things were taking off for them. But I love the Wasp songs, man. I mean, Blackie's so cool. He sings great. He's become a buddy over the years. And they got great guitar tone. The production of their records are really heavy and cool.
Sure.
Wasp was great. And it's, Tom basically sings like Blackie. So that was kind of the obvious.
I tell you what, Tom
he brought
has
that
an
up. So
amazing
I was
voice.
kind of ripping off a bunch of the ones I want to do. He goes, well, then wait a minute, man. I want to do a Wasp song. I said, good by me. I love it. So
yeah.
I've never played a Blackie bass line before. Now I have. So
yeah,
it's fun putting this together.
That's cool. And it's going to be released October 2nd, right?
Yeah, October. Yep, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're just, getting the final tracks back. I mean, a bunch of artists, just as we were putting it together and the songs were coming in, and, we were just as a band, we're talking over the phone and WhatsApp and Zoom and whatnot, just kind of go, oh, man, how about this, how about that? And that's with Doro, thought, man, let's hit Doro singing this, and, my friends Troy Lucetta and Frank Cannon from Tesla are each playing two different songs, and just fun stuff, And the funny thing is when you call people and tell them, hey, we're doing this thing, they're like, oh my gosh, I'd love to play that. That was like my favorite song growing up. So it's funny how your instincts kind of lead you to get the right person, and then when they're a fan of it, then it's a no-brainer, and that's what you want. You want someone who's like, oh my God, I'll sit down and relearn that tune, no problem. I was such a fan of it as a kid. And then that's when you kind of realize, man, we all share the same record collection.
Are any of the band members from these bands, are they going to be on the release, the new record?
No, I don't. Yes, one of them is. And we're going to put a press release out probably in a couple weeks with kind of an update on it, because we wanted to make sure, first of all, that the artists that we had asked to come and join us, that they were able to do it and that we got their performances back. So I didn't want to go out on a limb and start talking too much about we're going to have so-and-so. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, the world ends and we didn't get their performance, Right. So, so I wanted to make sure we had it before. I've learned it's better to talk about what you did than what you're going to do, So in a couple of weeks, we'll give an update on that.
Right on.
Coming together well now.
Right. Okay. A couple more questions. We reached out to some of our listeners, and they sent in questions. There's a few questions, if you don't mind. What is your favorite solo track to play live from your solo band?
Vultures is always fun, which is, something that we wrote for the Sleeping Giants record. I would say, honestly, If You Were God is my favorite one. And it's one that I sing live. I had John Bush sing it on the demo 25 years ago. I sing it live. I wrote that song on a guitar in a hotel room in like, I don't know, January or February of 1993 while we're on the Countdown to Extinction tour. Or
Wow,
something.
man.
Yeah, I literally just fell right out of the guitar. I just bought this brand new, it's a used guitar. I bought it because it was used and it sounded cool. And that song just fell right out of it, you know? So it was like, the song was already there, you know? So that one's fun. And that one's cool. There's another song that I wrote with the F5 guys. Again, I wrote the bass line and, you know, put the song together with those guys. And that song's called Feel Your Pain. And that one's cool because I get to vocally stretch out, you know, and that's the thing. You know, I used to sing all the time when I was in bands growing up. And, you know, actually once my voice dropped, once I hit like, you know, puberty and I was like 13 years old or something, my voice dropped. I could never really sing rock that well. I used to have a high voice. I had like a Geddy Lee voice, you know, and then I hit puberty and then my voice dropped. You know?
Right.
And then I just could never do it. But I was a good backup singer. Like when Michael Anthony, like those sweet Van Halen harmonies, you know, I always call it the Michael Anthony, you know, third, you know, that he sings, and that I could always do really well. And so
I was amazed when I heard him when I could actually hear his voice, you know, he's got a little bit of a higher pitch, and
yeah.
I was amazed. I was totally, I just didn't think that was coming from him.
Well, I found as a musician, you know, when you can sing, it just adds 10 points to your resume. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Obviously, if you can sing lead, it's even better. And I've done a lot of stuff. I've done stuff with the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp and various things, and you know, and it's forced me to come back to singing again, like singing lead, which is fun and it's cool to do. But real lead singing on a track, especially an original tune, you know, I realized years ago that that's more about getting into a character. You know, it isn't just about hitting the pitches and hitting all the right notes. It's about getting into the character of that. And obviously in Megadeth, Dave does that, you know, so well, you know.
Sure.
Hello, meet the real.
Of
you know,
course.
he can just get right in there, and he's got conviction in his character. It isn't just the words he says; it's the character. And you know, the great singers, that's what they do. So you know, for me, you know, being, you know, singing harmony and backup, that's why I sing so much in Megadeth, backup stuff. You know, I kind of anchor a lot of that. And which is fun. Again, it's kind of the Michael Anthony thing, you know. If you know, play bass and sing, I think it's, you know, you add a lot more to your position in the band when you can sing.
Right. Okay, a couple more. Overall, whether it be with your solo band or Megadeth, can you remember like let's say your favorite or an opening band, up and coming band that really blew your socks off?
Like an opening band for Megadeth or something?
Yeah, Megadeth or Ellefson.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, we've had, you know, the one that, okay, so usually we review, I mean, I think years back, like for instance, you know, I already knew of Pantera. I was buddies with them. I'd already jammed on stage with them. So when they came out with us, I already knew who they were and that they were really coming up the ranks. Same with Stone Temple Pilots. They were a new band. Korn, I remember getting the CD from, you know, our management would send out CDs and say, hey,
I remember that tour.
Yeah, here's 3-4 bands that are a consideration. Why don't you guys listen to them, see what ones you like? And I remember Korn was so whacked. I mean, that first album, you're like, this is bizarre. And we took a chance on it. You know, we thought this is cool, you know, and you know, so we took a chance on them. And fortunately, the ones that, you know, STP and, you know, Korn and, you know, obviously Pantera and stuff, you know, a lot of these bands went on to become bigger than Megadeth at the time. You know, they like shot to superstardom.
Sure.
And I think the one that was the unexpected was Alice in Chains. They were put on some dates as we were finishing the Rust in Peace tour in Europe. This would have been spring of 1991. And then we were going to come home for about a month, and then we were going to go out on the Clash of the Titans tour in the USA. And I'll never forget the day. It was at the Vokes house in Zurich, Switzerland. And we walked in, and we saw the day sheet, you know, that had the schedule on it. We usually arrive around 4 o'clock, go up the stairs, do sound check. And the dressing rooms were downstairs in that venue. And I remember me and Marty, we saw their name, like Alice in Chains. Like, what the hell kind of band name is that? Like, you know, is that a joke? Like, what is that? You know what I mean? We didn't know. Because sometimes it would just say, you know, local support, you know, it would just, and so their name is on, like, who are these guys? And then when they started playing, you know, like whatever, 7 p.m. or whatever, we were downstairs and we heard them playing. We're like, wow, that sounds pretty good. Let's go up and check them out. And we went up and we watched them. And you know, they kind of looked like these grody lumberjacks back then.
Of course, of course. Yeah.
Scraggly, you know, their goatees. And it was just like, holy hell, this is amazing. You know, I mean, we were blown away. We immediately called our management back in the United States. And we had not picked an opening band yet for the Clash of the Titans tour. It was Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, but there was going to be an opener. And we called home and we found the band, Ellefson Chains.
That's amazing.
Yeah, call Slayer's management, Anthrax's management, work it out. And Scott Ian loved them. He knew of them. You know, Scott's always pretty on the pulse with stuff, so he knew of them. And that's how they ended up on the Clash of the Titans. So
right
you never, that was probably the big unexpected one. And then, of course, after Clash, and, you know, they got pelted with trash on that because, you know, our fan, you know, the thrash metal fans are like, what the hell's this? You know, I mean, it was grunt, you know, it was the new sound, you know,
of course.
It was so new. So God bless the Ellefson Chains guys, man. They sucked it up and they took their punches, man, from our fans. And then they went off to tour with Van Halen and, you know, old Jed's Millionaire and the rest is history. You know, so they did very well. God bless.
One more question before closing. Any updates on the new Megadeth record?
Yeah, I mean, it's in progress. You know, we've got bass and drums done. Dave's working on guitar stuff now. You know, lyrics are being written, vocals put down. I mean, it's all in motion now.
Sure.
You know, I think, you know, getting together to get the bass and drums down, I mean, that's the foundational blocks of it. I mean, the songs had been written, so we knew what the material was, and we worked very diligently on it and really, you know, honed it. So now it's coming along, and you know, that'll be, I mean, ironically, having a year off from touring is probably good because now we can really take our time with this record. And I have a feeling it's going to be quite good.
I'm quite sure it is. For closing, is there anything you would like to push, promote, speak on, like anything you want to push?
No, I don't know. Get your Ellefson coffee.
There you go.
Signing bags of coffee right now.
There you go. Right on.
That's another thing I'm adding to my list of this. If there isn't enough hours in the day, I take one day a week and I just sign a whole gazillion bunch of bags of coffee every week.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, man. Well, right on.